All right, good day, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in. It's great to have you here for another episode of Gaming Tonic. Just started the music over again accidentally, my bad there. But good day, good afternoon, happy Halloween, everybody. To those of us listening later in the week or whatever time you listen to this too, it is Halloween today. So today we are going to be talking about horror games. Hopefully you guys are ready for it. Big whoop. My name is Just Vince. I will be one of your hosts for today, joined by...
The Ordinary Joker, and I will be your other host.
Awesome. Awesome. We're excited to get talking about this one. This is one that we thought would be appropriate given that the podcast recording day actually lands on Halloween. So how's your week been so far, Joker? What have you been up to?
This week's been very busy for me.
Same.
I did my Amazon unboxing, so we got all that stuff that I ordered like a week ago. Played Watch Dogs Legion for the first time on its launch day. Very fun
nice
game.
Very nice. So you're enjoying it?
Yeah, very much so.
Awesome.
It's a really cool game. And then I carved a pumpkin last night on stream, and that was fun.
I got to see a little bit of that. Your pumpkin carving stream was very fun.
Yeah,
I was very
really
impressed.
Cool.
I was very impressed by your artwork, to be honest with you. It looked really good. Yeah, I was surprised by how great those looked.
I carved the Gaming Tonic logo in my pumpkin.
Yes.
I'll probably post it on our Twitter for anyone listening or watching to see if you guys want to check that out.
Yeah, Grub in the chat says he stayed up until 3 a.m. for that. People want to see the pumpkin carving. It's festive. It's Halloween time. You got to do it. You got it.
Grub's a hero. Hung out the whole time. How was your week, man?
Oh, dude, absolutely awesome, honestly. Like, just another week of playing a lot of Guild Wars 2. It's basically like this entire last week has been wake up in the morning after about 7 hours of sleep, play Guild Wars from like 10 a.m. until about 3 in the afternoon, and then go straight to work and work until like 1 in the morning roughly, and then come home and sleep and repeat. So it's been about 5 days of that, trying to like hop around to different streams and like say hi to people, get some stuff cooking. Might be planning on doing some kind of like a fashion costume outfit contest in game type thing, just something to give back to the community, give away some gold in the coming weeks. So I'm going to be doing a dry run of that like next Friday, and just do like a small gold giveaway for that, just to see if it's something I can even do, because I've never done anything like that before.
That's cool. I like that idea.
Yeah. So we're gonna see how it goes. I've been talking to other streamers and like trying to pick their brains, like other people in the Guild Wars scene, trying to get that figured out. And it's been pretty cool. Like getting everything organized and really getting to know the community a little bit better. And I've been having a ton of fun with Guild Wars too. So highly recommend trying that if anybody's into MMO games. One question that I had about your Amazon unboxing: did you have a favorite item that you got? Was there anything that really stuck out?
Honestly, I think my favorite items would have to be like the shirts I got. I really like the shirts.
What was the best shirt you got, if you had to pick one? I know you got a few.
That's a tough. It's probably between Daddy and the one that says "Eat, sleep, eat ass, repeat." Those two are probably my favorites.
Those are both really good. Wait, the one shirt just says Daddy, like in big letters. That's it.
Yeah, like in the Coke logo too. Like it's like that Coca-Cola font. Like
that's funny.
Squirrel. Yeah, it's awesome.
Perfect.
And I love Coke, so it works out.
That's a great shirt, man. Right on. I'm hyped about that.
Chicken butt.
You got a shirt that says "Guess what, chicken butt"? Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Did you not see it?
I did not see that one. I saw the other ones. I didn't see that shirt.
I gotta bust them out later or something.
Have you uploaded the VOD yet of your unboxing?
Not yet.
Okay.
Come in like next 2 weeks. Probably not this week because I'm gonna do the pumpkin video this weekend, but week after.
Oh yeah, I remembered you saying you stayed up like all night making sure you had that video edited for Halloween time.
I would have done the other one sooner, but I feel like the pumpkin carving after Halloween just wouldn't make sense. So as close as Halloween to possible.
In mid-November, all of your nice pumpkin decorations. I mean, it's still kind of festive for the fall time, you know? It kind of works for Thanksgiving. But I mean, it's carving pumpkins specifically is for Halloween. I mean, that is what you're doing there. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense why you would want to keep that closer to Halloween time. But so, are you ready for our topic today?
Cool. I'm always ready.
I'm ready, dude. We're going to be talking about horror games. This is chapter 2 of our series that we're doing called The Games We Play, where we're pretty much going through all the different genres and the games we play in each genre and our thought about those genres, and really digging in deep to, the games that we played. We have played things that are really like near and dear to our heart, that matter a lot to us, that we think you'd be interested to hear about. And we go into a little bit about the history of the game and all that stuff. I'm ready for spooky talk. I see you. Chad is ready for spooky talk. It's time. It's Halloween. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this. We can deliver. We will whisper in weird voices because it's creepy. That's perfect. It's fine. We got this. Everyone, be ready to
Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Okay. We're literally never gonna do that again, but it's okay. So Joker, are you doing anything special for Halloween today?
I'm streaming tonight, and I'm gonna watch a movie. We're doing a watch party.
Awesome. What are you watching?
Pet Cemetery,
Very exciting.
2019 version, not the old one.
Got you. Yes. The one that like the one that people under the age of like 18 will not immediately turn off because it looks old. That one.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
you.
exactly.
I I kind of get that vibe. I was actually talking to Erica, my wife, today, and we were talking, and she was like, "You want to watch a scary movie?" I was like, "Sure, why not? Let's watch a scary movie." And she was like, "Okay, what do you want to watch?" And she was going through a few of them, and she was bringing up like Silence of the Lambs and like Poltergeist was on there, and like some older like classic horror movies. And I was like, I'll be honest, like older horror movies really take me out of like the experience. Like I'm
Yeah,
so distracted by how like by the film quality and like just how much worse the production value was back then and like the technology difference between the two times and how much like worse the movie looks overall. It really pulls me out of the experience. And like I watched The Shining and that was still a really good movie. I wouldn't quite classify that as horror even though it like did have that kind of atmosphere. More of a
yeah.
psychological thriller type movie, but like I don't know, something about like the older horror movies really takes me out of it. And I'm not even like a young kid or anything like that, but I'm just like, for that genre specifically, I kind of need it to be a little bit more immersive, I feel like.
Oh yeah, dude. I think if there's any like film genre that gained a lot from special effects, it's probably horror and like
Yeah.
sci-fi, of course, but like horror for sure. Like if you're not that's the whole idea of horror is you want to be you want to be scared. You want to be like, "Oh man, that is something I don't want to be a part of right there."
You want
And
it
when
to
you're
look real.
seeing
Yeah.
yeah, when you're seeing those like cheesy effects, like there parts of it are cool cuz it's a little authentic. You're like,
Hmm.
"Okay, they probably use some type of prop or whatever for this. Is that's cool."
Yeah.
But like you're not like, "Oh man, that's real." That
Yeah.
looks real.
Exactly.
Nowadays, it might be a little over the top sometimes, but at least like as far as I know, I've never seen bodies cut up or anything like that, but I'm sure they do a pretty good job at making it look real.
I have no idea, man. I haven't experienced enough of like the horror genre, honestly. Outside of like the Conjuring movies, I've seen all of those. I'm a really big fan of the Conjuring universe. And I know we're getting a little off topic here, but like you mentioned, sci-fi like gained a lot
Yeah.
from like the updated technology. You didn't enjoy the pod racing scenes in Star Wars Episode One. That didn't
Listen,
that didn't do it for you, graphics
that was my
wise.
that was my favorite part of any of the Star Wars films ever, man. Now this is pod racing.
That was wow. That was perfect. Wow. Thank
Yeah,
you. Next year cosplay as Anakin, please. Please just do
dude.
it. Just do it. Do you have your maid
I have some
costume, by the
robes
way?
back there.
Do you have your maid costume, by the
It
way?
comes in on Wednesday.
Oh
I know.
no,
Yeah.
we
I
missed it.
It's cuz it's in China.
Oh,
They're slow on the deliveries. I would have had
gotcha.
to pay $20 of expedited shipping. And I don't know if that's worth it for the maid costume.
That's a lot of extra shipping. Okay,
It
fair
is a
enough.
lot.
Fair
It's about
enough.
double what the thing costs.
Yeah, that's too much. All right. Well, are you ready to get into it? Are we ready to talk about horror games instead of literally anything else that comes to mind?
I'm prepared.
All right, I'm excited here. So the first game that we're talking about, we're going through a little bit of the history on horror games here. We're starting out with one of the OGs, and obviously this isn't the very first like horror game per se. There were some like puzzle games, like jump scares, and like some atmospheric things that happen in other video games. But like we looked through the list, and this is where we decided that like horror as a genre in video games really had its birth. Like this was the genesis of horror in video games. And we're starting out with Resident Evil, which was actually called Biohazard in Japan, but there was some kind of a trademarking issue in the US, so they renamed it to Resident Evil when it came overseas. Like somebody already had like the trademark for the name Biohazard for something else. And it featured many commonplace horror game themes like pre-rendered backgrounds. It had like fixed camera angles to really like provide a sense of like unease and like tension, like a very claustrophobic feel in the game, so that when like the monsters would come at you, like it felt like you were like kind of had nowhere to go, and like really developed a sense of fear that way. And then it also had a lot of puzzles, which I think
Mhm.
is a theme that has really stayed with a lot of horror games today. I feel like most of the horror games that I play that have any kind of like mechanic aside from just jump scares and like tension, it's puzzles.
There's a puzzle,
I
yeah.
mean, that's kind of where they take it.
I think that's a core horror element. I would wager.
Yeah. So it started out there, and then you want to take us on to the next one?
Yeah, so next on the list we have Silent Hill, which was published by Konami in 1999.
Hmm.
This was a more psychological game than Resident Evil, and it pushed more of an atmospheric approach to horror games. So, I did you ever play Silent Hill, Vince?
I did not. I
I
have
didn't
not played
either.
any of the Silent Hill games. I did watch a playthrough of the, I want to say the second one. That was the one that most people recommended that like people play. So I actually
Yeah.
watched like a YouTube video. It was like Silent Hill 2, the movie, basically. Like, and it was just all the
Oh,
cutscenes and like the gameplay and everything like that. And it was a few hours long. It was really cool. So I did watch through all of that, but really interesting games.
Silent Hill 2 came out on the PlayStation 2,
I'll fact
right?
check real quick.
Okay. Yeah, that I remember seeing a little bit of gameplay for that. I feel like my dad used to play that when I was younger, and I used to like
PlayStation
I rem
2, September 24th, 2001.
yeah, dude. Okay, it is the one I'm thinking of then. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Silent Hill 2 scared the living daylights out of me when I was a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good old Pyramid Head.
Yeah, man. I don't
Yeah.
know what it was about that game. I feel like it had that more like realistic vibe. Atmospheric. Like it was just
Yeah.
it was terrifying, man.
Yeah, yeah. The Silent Hill games were definitely a hallmark in the horror genre. I mean, when I talk to people about like what horror game they would like to see, more than anything else, like the most common answer I get is Silent Hill. I mean,
Yeah.
they want the Silent Hill, like the next generation of Silent Hill games. That one that was supposed to come out with Norman Reedus, that was being worked on with Konami, that eventually got
The
canned.
yeah, PT
Yeah, like, well, and PT was supposed to be a demo to
or
basically be
that,
like, this
right?
is what's coming in the Silent Hill game, and
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean, when people talk about like horror games in general, like outside of your Resident Evil fanboys, I feel like your Silent Hill gang is like everyone else. It's like you're
Yeah.
either a Resident Evil fan for your horror fan, or you're a Silent Hill fan. And I feel like I might actually say that Silent Hill has like a like very cult classic following, like because there hasn't been a game in so long. So like the newer gamers don't know it, but
Yeah.
there is a ton of fans for this game.
I agree. They made a movie for that too, didn't they?
I never saw it.
There's a few Silent Hills, I think. Like at
Yeah,
least one or two.
I haven't seen any of those movies.
Or
Maybe I
The
should
Hills
watch
Have
them.
Eyes. Yeah, yeah, we could do
Is The
that.
Hills Have Eyes even related to Silent Hill? I have no idea, dude.
I think it is, dude. I
Is it?
something maybe. I don't know. It's a bit off topic. I'm sorry, but like
No, I'm curious now. I mean, Silent Hill?
Mhm.
I'm looking it up. I have no idea. Oh, Erica said that the Silent Hill movie is so good. We'll have to take a look at that.
I know there's a movie for it. Yeah. Okay, 2 movies.
There's two movies. Okay, awesome. Thank you for fact checking us on the fly there.
I
I say,
appreciate that.
I'll be honest. I didn't anticipate talking as much about horror movies in this segment as I thought. Like at
Yeah.
all. I thought we were just gonna be talking about games, but like there have been a lot of like horror games that have been adapted into movies. I mean, the Resident
Yeah,
Evil series specifically.
yeah, some of them go hand in hand, I feel like, cuz some of these games done right could make even better movies, I think, honestly.
Probably. I mean,
Some of the Resident Evils are
as far as movie quality, yeah, a little bit of a
yeah.
letdown for how good the series is as a whole. I feel like a lot of the movies compare more to Resident Evil 6 than kind of where the franchise got its start, being more of like an action movie as opposed to like true horror.
Yeah.
But hey, that's
I've heard
just
really good things about the Silent Hill movies though.
yeah. I've never seen them. I'll say maybe we'll watch that later today, Erica. We'll see. We'll see. So moving on to the next one though, we've got Fatal Frame, and this one is definitely a cult classic. I mean, this is one of the most popular like horror games that I had heard of before I started playing horror games, because people on the Nintendo subreddits were always asking for a sequel to this game, and they finally made one. But the first Fatal Frame came out back in 2001, and it was made by Tecmo, and it was a unique twist on horror that required you to take photographs of ghosts to defeat them.
Mhm.
So like you're kind of like forced to confront your fears in that way, and you're only armed with a camera, and that is how you do your combat in the game essentially, is just through taking pictures of these ghosts. And like I've never played it personally. I don't know what the draw is to the game, because personally it sounds like spooky Pokemon Snap to me. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's something out there for everybody when it comes to horror games. And I mean, this is kind of the history of horror games, and this was one of the most requested games on both the Wii U and the Switch over the
Mhm.
last two generations of Nintendo consoles, and we finally got it. So it's kind of crazy to think about how far that game has come. But
I like the idea of that. It almost like with Phasmophobia today. I know a big part of Phasmophobia is like you go in with your camera and you got to take a picture of the ghost, but it's more of like a realistic 3D environment. Like I feel like we're kind of seeing other horror games take from the older ones as time goes on too. Like they're slamming all those elements together,
most definitely.
making it beautiful.
Yeah, the sequel to this game I just checked right now actually came out in September 27th, 2014 for the Wii U. That's when we finally got it. So it
That's
was
probably
called
why I never
Fate.
heard of it.
Yeah, Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater. So all three people that owned a Wii U, there's a great horror game for you out there. The next one's kind of a big one.
So this next one's Resident Evil 4,
Yes.
which happens to be the only Resident Evil game I've ever played.
I have never played Resident Evil 4.
This one's really good.
Yeah, I've never even tried it.
I think it's on PlayStation Now for free if you have a membership for that, or I think you can get a free membership.
I don't have
Anyway,
PlayStation Now, but either way.
It's worth, I promise. There's a lot of good old games. But
Oh,
this
I'll
game
take a
came
look.
out in 2005. It introduced over-the-shoulder shooting perspective, which took a pretty fresh approach to the franchise and reinvigorated the horror genre.
Yeah.
Because to my knowledge, they didn't do a whole lot of over-the-shoulder stuff, right? It was a lot of first-person or not even shooting at all, really, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you look at something like Resident Evil, which if I remember correctly, on like the Nintendo 64, you would be like walking, and then like you would have to stop moving and pull up your gun, and then aim it with the same stick,
I think,
and it wasn't
yeah,
as much of the
that's
dual stick movement.
that's exactly how 4 is. It's just stop and go.
Oh, that's funny, dude. Yeah, like,
It almost
and
makes it scarier though. Like you're like, oh god, I gotta sit still for a second. Like,
well, and I look at Resident Evil 4, and like as someone who didn't play it, all of my experience with Resident Evil 4 specifically, and the entire Resident Evil franchise, and a lot of the horror games on this list, because I didn't really start playing horror games until about 2014ish. Like Resident Evil 4 is where I think most of the fans say the series kind of fell off, like right after this game. Like this was the last true Resident Evil game in a lot of their eyes, like where it started to kind of deviate away from being horror, and you start to get into like Leon walking up, punching rocks and stuff like that. Like and
yeah.
like this is kind of where it started to go like a little more action oriented and a little bit less of just like tension, horror, slow, methodical, and like a lot of the fans kind of didn't like the direction that it took after this. Have you played
Yeah,
Resident Evil 6?
I haven't played any other Resident Evil besides this one, and I only played this one because of how much hype it had. And my girlfriend really likes that game. She's one of her childhood games. I had to try it.
Would you say it lived up to the hype, in your opinion?
Um, so I played it, I think last year. That
Oh,
was yeah, like a
so
very
15
recent
years
one.
later, yeah.
Yeah, and for 2005, I think it was a really good game. Like there was a lot of it felt very open. There was a lot of like stuff to pick up. The shooting was kind of like clunky, with that
Hmm.
stop and go. It was kind of weird, but I don't know. I kind of had to put myself in that 2005 mind state and just take the game for what it was at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was pretty good. I like the story too. The story was really engaging, even
And
though I couldn't understand what the zombies were yelling at me. Everyone spoke Spanish.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, but I feel like more than anything else, like horror games tend to hold up better than almost any other game in the genre, because that
Yeah, I
feeling
agree.
of tension and the fear and the jump scares and all that stuff, I mean, they stay relevant. And
It
like,
goes deeper than the graphics. It's
yeah.
just always there.
And I mean, you're always going to have like the young kids that are like on that graphics grind, like, oh my gosh, if it doesn't look incredible, I can't play it. Why am I playing this pixel game? What is Dead Cells? And there's people who get hung up on that, and I understand that. But I would say for the majority of gamers, they can just appreciate a game for the gameplay, and the story and like what it's trying to tell and the art and all that stuff for what it is and not what they think it
Mhm.
should be. I think that horror games hold up better than any other game in the genre, like
I
across all genres.
100%. I agree with everything you said. Th- there's something about them. It's because that like layer of fear. I guess it always stays in that game,
Yeah.
regardless of how the game. I mean, gameplay has a big part of it, but regardless of the graphics, that you're always gonna feel like that tension. It's always there, no matter how old it gets. Timeless.
I would even say the terrible gameplay adds another layer to it,
Yeah, like
because you're
that
so used to
shooting
things working.
and
Like
yeah.
you're so used to it being fast and fluid and snappy and immediately being able to respond to things right off the bat, and you just can't do it in these older horror games. You need to
I
plan a little
think
bit better.
yeah, dude. A really cool part about horror, I think, is that in a lot of the games, you unless it's like Doom, I guess, you never
Yeah.
feel like that super badass like god mode character. You feel very vulnerable and human, and that horror hits that. I'd say almost better than some survival games, I would say. Like
Most definitely.
you feel pathetic sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of feeling pathetic specifically, I mean, this kind of leads us into our next title here, Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And I know that
Mhm.
this is one that probably a lot more people will be familiar with who are PC gamers, because I don't know if this came out on consoles. I think the newer ones came out on consoles. I don't know if this one did. But September 8th, 2010, this game came out, and it had a much greater focus on atmosphere than and like tension, you know, and making you feel uneasy than just pure jump scares all the time. And you
Mhm.
didn't have a way of fighting back. This was kind of the like one of the first horror games where you were completely helpless. I mean, you were only there to experience what is happening around
Yeah.
you, and you had to work your way out. And Grub mentioned that it came out on console in 2016. He thinks, okay, perfect. Thank you for the correction on that one. I never saw it on my console as a collection. Okay, so it was after the sequel had already released. And this game has actually
Oh,
had
okay.
had a couple of sequels. I think they just released the third game in this series recently. Um,
I think that was recent.
and
I can get a
I've
date.
seen a few people playing it on Twitch, so like I know that it had to be recent because I've seen it popping up on people's directories again.
Yeah.
But I mean, it had things like you had to manage your sanity, so staying in dark areas for too long. Anytime that you like witness a scary event happen, anytime that you like stare directly at the monsters inside of the game, like that starts to erode your sanity over time. And as your sanity erodes, you start to pretty much experience these visual and auditory hallucinations. So on top of the already present like natural horror, things that are happening inside of the game, you start to hallucinate. And so there's weird noises going off on your headphones. You start seeing things that
Oh.
aren't really the way that they are, and it's this entire other level that just like raises the tension even that much higher to the point where they could put in mild jump scares and you are losing your mind because there's already so much other stuff going on, and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back type of
Yeah,
effect. It's
it's
so
sound
many
it
things at once.
sounds like it's just like overstimulating you, but not to the point of like desensitizing you, just to the point where you're on your like wits end to
Yeah.
the like so when they finally throw that character or whatever it is that scares you, like you're just you're about to melt down.
Yeah. I feel like this is really the first game where they started looking at what movies do right with horror and saying, how can we put this in our game? They really tried to capture the feeling of helplessness of being like a typical protagonist in scary movies, adding as many layers as possible with all the different noises that you hear. I mean, I'm like trying to think specifically about like going to see a scary movie in the theater. You're
Yeah.
witnessing the protagonist there, completely helpless, not actually able to fight back in most cases. Like the music starts going. So you get that real spooky music, that tense music, and then it like starts to hit the crescendo and you know something's about to happen, They started really
Yeah.
capturing that kind of feeling. All the different like ambient noises that could be going on around you, the things that the main character could be seeing in that film, different hallucinations that people have in like scary like demon possession type movies, that sort of thing, like starting to see things more around them and like have visions, that sort of thing. Like, and they really tried to capture all of these elements of what movies do and say, how can we put this in a game and just like scare the pants off of everybody? And I think that this was the first game to really capture it well, and really that
Yeah.
feeling of helplessness.
And on that topic of comparing it to the movies, I think horror has gotten exponentially better when with the introduction to headphones. Like having those headphones on and hearing like that all around sound, like it is.
It's terrifying.
Yeah,
It's
that's another
genuinely
layer
terrifying.
to it.
Yeah, it
Lights
definitely
off,
does. Oh yes.
lights off. You got the surround sound audio and the headphones. Oh, all you
Yeah,
need is a VR headset, and you're.
yeah. It's
That's another thing, man. We'll get into that later. The
oh
introduction
gosh.
of VR and horror. Oof.
I have not tried VR horror games yet. I mean, we will talk about that a little bit later, but I haven't gotten the experience, and I probably don't plan to because I'm a baby. But like
Yeah, same.
speaking specifically to the introduction of like headphones and what that's done for gaming, like I'm kind of like gonna take a little sidebar here. Have you played Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice?
Newest. I've heard of it. I haven't played it.
Okay, for anyone listening, if you have a game console, go pick up Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. It is one of the most incredible gaming experiences I've ever had. The entire game, I mean, the premise is essentially like set in like the Norse timeline,
Right.
but your main character has schizophrenia.
Uh-huh.
And the entire game was kind of like to draw attention to this like mental illness and kind of highlight that and give you an
Right.
experience of what it's like to have
Yeah,
that
I remember
illness.
I remember reading all about that. I was I is it a really good game?
It's incredible. I mean,
Okay.
like 10 out of 10 game. Like should definitely play it if you haven't already. Like
Tell me more about it.
the combat is kind of forgettable, but like the part that I really want to highlight that you mentioned is the headphones. And
Yeah.
something that they do if you're wearing headphones, which you should be if you're playing this game, is like you'll hear whispers like telling you things. Like, and it sounds like it's coming from a bunch of different places and from like different like distances away from you. So like some whispers will be louder, and then like stuff will start to ramp up as you see more monsters and stuff like that, and start to see the visions that you're seeing and these creatures that you're fighting, and like the whispers will start to get louder, and they'll almost be like yelling at you, like
Oh.
and it's so tense, like, and it's an absolutely incredible story that like highlights a really important mental illness that I think doesn't get enough attention in society. So like if you haven't played that game, I'm just like giving that a shout out. Go play it. It's not quite a horror game, but it definitely has like some similar elements of tension. So I don't feel too bad bringing that up here,
Oh
but
yeah, definitely.
yeah, that and like
I think psychological horror is way scarier than any gore or whatever you can throw at me. Like if you can make me really feel like I'm going crazy, like
yeah.
that's what scares me.
Yeah, and that's really what the game tries to let you experience. And fun fact,
Yeah.
the voice actress for the main character actually won a ton of awards the year that that game came out for like her like incredible job that she did voice acting the main character. And she actually had no prior experience voice acting before. When they were looking for someone who was going to be a voice actress for the character, they were legit like, does anybody in the studio think they can do this? And she was like someone who worked on audio at the studio, and she had never had any experience and like won almost every award that was available for voice acting that year.
Dang,
It was
dude.
crazy. Like, so yeah,
Got a
really,
resume now.
yeah, really talented team, really incredible story. Definitely give Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice a look if you haven't already. So that kind of wraps up our history of horror games. It was a little bit of a like shorter history section today. Resident Evil like was kind of the kickoff point. Silent Hill, obviously, a big hallmark. Fatal Frame, I wanted to bring up because it was a unique combat style, and then Resident Evil 4, a real turning point for the series. Really, the last like core horror Resident Evil game before Resident Evil 7, which we'll get into. And then Amnesia, obviously, the start of like the like very helpless feeling horror games. Um,
Yeah.
so like we did a quick recap on that, and we're going to be talking about horror games that are kind of still relevant today and where it's come from. And the reason the history section was so short is because I feel like we're really just now getting into what will be the history of horror games.
Yeah, I
I,
agree. I think the hardware now is finally allowing some like actually scary stuff to start coming through.
yeah. And the first game on our list that I think merits being the first game on our list, because this was really the next game to take what Amnesia did and do it a little bit bigger, if you will. And that's Outlast. Have
Hmm.
you played the first Outlast?
I haven't, but I've seen a lot of Outlast. Like when it was going through that huge craze, maybe what was it, like 4 or 5 years back or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Like I watched that game a lot. Let me preface something. A lot of these games that we have written down here, I have not played. I am not a huge horror game person because I'm a little sissy. So I don't have a lot of personal knowledge on this stuff, but I have heard of these games. Just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, I know my wife can speak personally to her trauma from Outlast, as we did a little bit of a playthrough of that last week, and she held on for a long time, but eventually she succumbed to the terrors that are horror games, because they're tense, and it's
Yeah,
so
they are,
much
man.
different watching someone else play it than play it yourself, and that's something
I
I
think
didn't realize.
yeah, I think that's why I enjoyed watching it so much because I was like, I enjoy seeing these reactions, but I don't want that to be me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely a fun time, but I actually played all the way through Outlast, but my first experience with Outlast, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week or not or told this story, but at the start of Outlast, you are driving up to the asylum, which is where it takes place. It takes place in some kind of a like mental institution, insane asylum, typical horror tropey place, cool.
Yeah.
And you go up to the gate and you go through the gate, and then you try all the doors. The doors are locked, and you find this little hole in the fence over on the left. So you crouch down real low, you crawl through the hole in the fence, and there's some scaffolding, and you see a broken window up at the top that looks like you can climb through. Okay, just to set the mood for anyone who hasn't played the intro to Outlast here. And so you climb up. Your character's heavily breathing, because when you're doing physical work like that, you actually breathe heavily if you're not incredibly in shape. I'm not incredibly in shape, so my character's all breathing heavy and stuff like that. I get to the top of the scaffolding after climbing all the way up there and jumping across and stuff. I climb in the window, and as soon as my feet touch onto the ground inside of the window, the lights go out,
Aw,
and I shut off my PlayStation and I went to bed. I
you're
said,
like, I'm
nope,
good.
I've had enough. That is all of the Outlast for me. I do not want any more of that. I'm more than good on this. And I finally ended up playing through the rest of the game. I went over to my friend Duncan's house, and I took my PlayStation over there, loaded it up over there, and actually played through the entire game in one night. And like all the lights were out, and like I kept on wanting to quit, but like Duncan's really into horror stuff, so he was like, "Dude, come on, you got to keep going. We're gonna beat it. You're doing so good, you know." And we were like taking turns with the controller every time we would die, which admittedly was a lot for me because I'm, not a horror game connoisseur per se at this time. Because again, this is really my first big entry into horror games. And we managed to stick all the way through it, and it was a terrifying, incredible experience. Like if you have any appreciation for horror games at all, you have to play Outlast.
Yeah, there's a really
it's so
cool
good.
twist at the end, right?
There is a
Yeah,
very
that's
good
what
one. No spoilers because it's spooky time, and I know people are playing these games right now. But
yeah.
Outlast has quite a twist at the end of it that I think is definitely worth playing and suffering through the rest of the jump scares and horror and tension that the rest of the game brings. And
Outlast 2.
Yeah, Outlast 2.
Oh.
I haven't played yet. I've heard pretty good things about it, but I will be playing it tonight. So if you guys want to hang out at around 7 p.m. Pacific time, I will be there tonight on Halloween. For our listeners, okay, to the podcast, I'm sorry that you aren't our live viewers. We do love you, just not as much. It is what it is.
It's true. We've said it before. We'll keep saying it.
So
you want that equal love? Come to the live show.
And specifically something about Outlast that I think was the most like scary moment for me. And again, you mentioned that you watched people play, but you haven't played it yourself, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've seen the scenes where like one of the earliest ones, there's like one of the big like monsters, if you will, in Outlast. Like it's basically just a really big dude who's like real ugly. And like he he comes walking down the hall and he's like trying to bust in the door to the room that you're in, and you have to hide it inside of like a locker.
Right.
And you can see through just a couple of slits in the locker. Like there's just a couple of openings that you can barely see out of. And the dude walks over and he busts open the locker right next to you. Okay, and closes that locker and starts to walk over to your locker and then like here's something else somewhere else and like goes and walks away. But like those moments of hiding in Outlast were some of the most tense moments I've had in gaming. They're so good.
Yeah, if you really put yourself in the shoes of that character, can you imagine?
I can't.
How terrifying that would be.
I can't.
I would pee
it's
my
terrifying.
pants.
And there's scenes where like you hide under a bed and you can like see people walking around next to you looking for you. They'll be like, "What was that noise?" and go run into the room that you were in. So you hide under the bed and you're down there and you're like hiding, And there's a couple of scenes where like they'll check under the bed and they'll pull you out and start beating you to death, and then you just lose.
I would stay in the locker. You know what? I'm too smart to even go in that asylum in the first place. I would have seen that, and I would have turned around and gone, "You know what? I'll go in here if you give me a partner or something." What, the guy's like a news reporter or something,
Some
right?
kind of a journalist or something, yeah.
Get your buddies, get a camera crew, and come back. Like, no one's paying me any amount of money to go do that.
I might consider a career change at that point. I did gardening work for all of like 3 months of my life, and I'd probably dip out of there and go back to gardening work at that point. Honestly, working out in the hot sun during the summertime, I'd rather do that than go investigate an asylum as a reporter. Could not be me, dude.
By yourself.
Yeah, there's no way.
What?
That's my least favorite job I've ever done, and I would happily take that over investigating a spooky place like that.
That's got to be the most like unrealistic part of Outlast. Like, realistically, they would have somebody, right? Like,
yeah,
realistically, somebody would be with that person. I feel like they don't just like go out by themselves like that.
Like, I don't watch shows like Ghost Hunter or anything like that, but I imagine like there's got to be some people that are like doing that are just like putting on an act or something like that who don't actually believe in ghosts,
Yeah.
But I feel like even those people going into spooky areas would be like, okay, let's bring the rest of the crew too, just in case, Like, I'm not saying I believe, but maybe, but I don't believe, but maybe,
It's that like safety in numbers mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
I have that. I would have to have somebody with me.
Now, the next game on our list holds a place in my heart that is secured there probably permanently, and Dead Space. I think that this is one that for probably the majority of gamers is like, again, outside of the Resident Evil, Silent Hill fanboys, like probably the next generation of like horror gamers, this is their horror game.
Yeah, I know this one's really big too. Another one I haven't played, so
I'll
let you talk about that one.
Oh, dude, even if you don't do horror games, like just from the perspective of like a third person shooter with a really compelling story, like even outside of the jump scares, These games are masterpieces. I'm speaking specifically to Dead Space 1 and 2. Dead Space 3 was largely forgettable, but the DLC was really good. So if you can manage to stomach playing all the way through Dead Space 3, you can get some really good DLC at the end of the third game, but the rest of the game is pretty garbage. The first two games, however, okay, back before EA started to take all of their franchises and run them into the dirt, thank you, EA, like, absolute masterpieces. I mean, I would venture to say I have not enjoyed a horror game on the same level as Dead Space, like since I started playing horror games. Not even for a second. The weapons are incredibly unique. The main one that you use is a mining laser, and it looks kind of like a pistol. I mean, I know that like the people listening to the podcast afterwards can't see my hand motions, but basically it's got like a base and then a top that are both like these little bars that stick out, and it shoots either horizontal like this, or vertical, and you can swap it. And what that does is it lets you shoot off different limbs of the creatures that are coming at you. So you turn it horizontal, you can shoot the legs off, and then they'll just be crawling at you with their arms. And if they have like really big arms that they're going to use to attack you, you can turn it vertical and shoot the arm off.
That sounds kind of fun.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
scary? Like, is it really scary?
Oh, it's so scary. Like... It's terrifying. Oh. Yeah, it's very scary. It's a very scary game. But like, Dead Space specifically is one that like, this kind of did for me what the Conjuring series did for me. This was really the like the big push for me into horror games was when I played Dead Space. Like just the sense of atmosphere, and basically you're on this abandoned mining ship where like a bunch of people have died and you're there trying to figure out what happened and all that stuff. Like, and I'm not going to give too much like information on the story because like telling more would basically be spoilers for what actually happens inside of the game. But like there's all these creatures running around, and you know, like you have to survive. And you're trying to figure out what happened, basically. And it is so good. And I don't know that there's any game that I've seen with as good of like impressive set pieces for a horror game than Dead Space. Were you yawning? I saw you covering your mouth. Were you yawning or really impressed? Okay, either way, both. That's fine.
Yawning.
Play Dead Space. That's the moral of the story. If you like horror games at all and you haven't played Dead Space, play it. If you can't stomach playing horror games, watch somebody else play it. At least once, just for the experience, because it's so good. So the next one I'm going to let you take, because this is one I actually have no experience on, but I know you do.
So next horror game we have here is Dead by Daylight. For those that haven't played this game, this is a 4v1, I guess, survival game, sort of, where there's 4 survivors. They have abilities. They're turning on generators to get away from the one killer who is fast, has abilities. He can see things through walls if you make noise. This guy's just coming for you at all times. And it's just a multiplayer match where the survivors get away from the guy, or the guy kills all of them and wins. You know, I wouldn't really consider this game like scary or like by any means, but it does have a lot of characters that a lot of horror fans know and love, like Michael Myers, Stranger Things characters, Freddy Krueger, stuff like that. But I feel like it was a relevant mention for Halloween. This game seems pretty big in the scene right now, so
yeah, and I mean,
give it some love.
I include it here because I would hesitate to include it anywhere else on our list unless we do like a multiplayer, like other segment, you know, because it kind of falls into that category. But like Dead by Daylight is definitely a game that I watch a lot of because a lot of my friends play it. A lot of the other people that I know that are streamers like have a real like hankering for this game right now specifically. And I think it's something that's like fun and easy to watch if you can't really handle traditional horror. There is quite a bit of gore in it, which is kind of a hallmark of horror games as well. I mean, you do like lift people up and like hook them on like meat hooks essentially.
Like, they all turn into opera singers.
Yeah, to keep them held there. Like, and I mean that there's things like that would typically be associated with the horror genre, such as gore. I mean, that's kind of been a popular theme throughout all the horror games. A lot of the monsters that you see are really like disfigured, like massive like amalgamations of a bunch of different body parts, that sort of thing. Like, you know, and gore has been a real staple of the horror genre for a long time. But I look at Dead by Daylight, and it's not a game that scares me, but it's definitely a game that makes me feel tense.
I agree. It's more of like a thriller than maybe not even a thriller, man. Like the only time I ever feel somewhat like scared or threatened, I guess, is when I'm opening that last gate right at the end, and I'm just like, oh man, this is it. Like, am I gonna get out? Like, and it's not even fear. It's more like you said, tension. It's really not that scary, but
Yeah.
worth mentioning.
Definitely a great Halloween option for people who want something that'll get their blood pumping a little bit, but don't really want a traditional horror game with all the jump scares and thrills and things like that. They're like horror connoisseurs tend to love. I would
Yeah.
say this is kind of a good entry point, a good horror light, something to get started with, as long as you can stomach gore, as long as violence isn't something that bothers you, because there is a little bit of that, like we mentioned.
Let me also say before, like, this is kind of the only true multiplayer horror game here, isn't it? That we have written.
Yeah, I
Like,
actually
so
can't think of another one besides like Phasmophobia, which we didn't include on this
yeah,
list, but I mean that's a big one. But
Phasmophobia. It I yeah, I mean that's huge to me. Like if you're really into horror and you just want to play some games online, you've played every horror game under the sun.
yeah,
Got a cool little multiplayer game to play that has a lot of mainstream horror characters in it.
yeah, it's really the only option for with friends besides Phasmophobia. I mean that's really the
Yeah.
only other one that sticks out. I mean I've heard about a game called Deceit. I don't even know if that's like somewhat similar to horror games. I know that's supposed to be kind of similar to Among Us, right? Kind of like a
See?
mafia style game where like you have one killer and then people are trying to figure out who it is. Is that the deal?
What's the name of it?
Deceit?
I've never heard of that.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, news for you. I've only heard about it in passing. It's not one that I've played personally, but I've heard a couple of good things about it. It's free to play and kind of neat, but it's supposed to be like
Oh,
a
okay.
little bit more like immersive Among Us, I guess. But
I'll have to check that out.
yeah, might be worth a look. So moving on to the next one, and this one's a bit of a doozy, because this is, in my opinion, the return of Resident Evil as a series to the horror genre, as opposed to just
Yeah,
being an action game.
I
Because
agree.
as much as I enjoyed like roundhouse kicking the head off of zombies in my action movie Resident Evil 6 game, which I know was not for everybody, like I really enjoyed like getting back to that tension and that fear and that immersion in Resident Evil 7. And I think that having it be in the first person perspective, which was a first for the series, just added another layer to that. I think that
Yeah.
this is a case of they saw what Outlast did and they were like, this is incredible and we like it. Or, I mean, even in the case of maybe Amnesia and what they did with that game. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between both Outlast and Amnesia. Now, Amnesia kind of did it first. But whatever it was that encouraged Capcom to be like, maybe they're onto something here, I dig it. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
I know it's a step away from the traditional Resident Evil series not being third person, but I love the first person view. I think for horror games, I mean, you can't go wrong with first person.
I think first person is king. I think it's cool because you can't see around you. You're seeing what's in front of you. That leaves a lot more opportunity to be scared.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that this is the direction that it really needed to take to kind of capture a new audience. Was get really like more involved with the true horror game. Even though there is puzzles inside of the game, I think it took a lot less emphasis like with the puzzles that you have to do and put a lot more emphasis on the story that you're telling and like building up the atmosphere and the environments and like the people that you're facing, the family inside of the house and all that stuff. I'm not gonna like talk too much more about it because spoilers and all that stuff. If you end up playing Resident Evil 7, it's a very good game and you can get it for cheap nowadays, and I would highly recommend it if you like
That's
horror.
really cool.
I-
Yeah, that's another one I haven't played, but especially this October, I've seen a lot of people playing this one.
yeah.
Funny enough, I when I first saw that game, I actually thought it was like another Outlast sequel before I knew it was Resident Evil because
Mhm.
I'm so like not used. Well, like you said, it was the first time they did first person, so I was like, I did not expect it to be a Resident Evil game. I was like, oh wow, this is different, but it also looks great and it has a good story. It's a cool game, guys.
Well, and I mean, you look at the new Resident Evil even that's coming out. I just looked it up to double check and make sure, but I mean, Resident Evil
Village,
Village,
right?
which is going to be the
Yeah,
next one in the series, is also staying the first person view.
I saw that. Yeah, have you seen the trailer for that?
I have. Very
You have?
good. Very good.
We could we haven't used the video in a while. We could maybe watch a trailer.
You want to watch a trailer right now? Are we going to do
I'm
it?
down to. You want to watch a trailer? Are you
About to say
prepared for that?
it's
I'm just throwing
2:48.
it
It's
out there.
2:48. So here we can throw it up real quick. It won't be an issue. Let's move on over to the clip scene here. To our listeners online, I'm so sorry, but this is the Resident Evil trailer. These guys work this long and this hard. Give them some recognition. Let's give
Yeah.
them a big clap here. So
You know, I heard one more thing about this game because I'm actually kind of excited for it. I heard what there was a main character making a comeback in this one, right?
they said Chris, right? Is it Chris
Right,
Redfield?
was it Chris? I think you're right. I think it was either Chris or like some guy. I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask Sniper. He'll know. But yeah, that I feel like that one's kind of going back. It almost like seemed like the same environment that Resident Evil 4 had, but like in first person and looking a whole lot better. You know,
It is Chris Redfield. Yes.
it is
Yeah.
Chris. Okay,
Just
yeah,
just Googled it for
he's a huge
confirmation.
player.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a big throwback too to older games in the series, and I think that this is going to be their kind of attempt to pull back the fans that have like kind of like stayed away from it because it wasn't the traditional Resident Evil game that they wanted. You know? Because
Yeah, I it looks like it's going back to its roots a little bit, like that like kind of rundown village with the castle at like that. Resident Evil 4 is like almost the same setting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this is them kind of trying to call back to that crowd. Because I think at the end of the day, whenever you try to change anything, you're always going to have people, especially in something like gaming with such like passionate, devoted fans, you know, who always think clearly and never make rash decisions based on, you know, just raw emotion at any time. I think that there were a lot of people who who looked at the new Resident Evil and went, "This isn't Resident Evil 4 updated, so we don't want it."
Yeah.
You know, and they missed out on an incredible horror game and an incredible horror experience because they didn't want to follow the direction that this series was going in. And I think that this might be enough, just enough fanfare here to pull people back in.
I think if anything pulls people back in, it's nostalgia.
Yep. Yep. And I think that's what they wanted. I think they wanted to feel that again. They wanted to feel how they felt playing Resident Evil 2 or 4 for the first time. And I'm hoping that they can kind of capture that essence with the new game. I mean, just as someone who is a fan of nostalgia myself. So moving on to our next one, we've got Aliens Isolation. Have you you haven't played this game either?
I actually tried to play this one.
You tried?
Like, yeah, maybe like 5 months ago.
Did you actually get to the part where you see the alien?
I got to that part and I stopped.
Fair enough. Same. Actually, same. I thought that this was an incredible game. I've seen a couple of people play it. I haven't watched a full playthrough or anything like that, but the story felt really good. One of the things that I liked that this game did really well was have like stealth moments where you aren't just hiding from the monster, you're actually hiding from people.
Yeah, I liked that as well.
And like
the people are mean, and the
Yeah.
cyborgs, they're evil.
Yeah. And this is one of the games that I think probably does that the best. Because the people aren't horribly disfigured, they aren't monsters, they aren't ghosts, they aren't demons, there's nothing like that. They are just bad guys. You know?
They're just assholes.
Yeah, but they still do a good job of developing a sense of fear from them because the second that you get caught by them, they beat you to death. I mean,
Yeah, they're
that's
rude. They will mob you and curb stomp you. It is brutal in this game. Everything that you think will kill you probably will.
Yeah. And this was kind of what a lot of people considered the evolution of Outlast, just because it had a bigger budget and a bigger team behind it, obviously. You know, it's got that alien money, if you guys are familiar with Alien movies at all. Very,
Alien
very
money.
popular horror movies. And I think this is probably like the continuation of movie video games specifically being good, you know? Because for a long time, movie video games were developed as an afterthought. They weren't good. They didn't have a lot of thought behind them. They didn't have a lot of passion behind them. It was basically, this is a money grab. And we've accepted that this is a money grab. We're looking at you, Marvel's Avengers from this year, okay? You're terrible, all right? And Alien Isolation really like was one of the bigger games to break the mold from that. It was a game that a lot of people were like, okay, like Aliens Colonial Marines was terrible, you know, and that was the last Alien game people got a taste of. And now we have this game, and it's different, and it's atmospheric, and it's tense, and it's stealthy, and there's horror elements, and it's got an interesting, compelling story and a believable villain, and one that's familiar to people, you know, in a universe that they already love and already has so much lore built around it. And I think that if you're a fan of the Alien movies, like, this is a must-play game. Honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Like
I think it's I've seen more past where I stopped playing, and I vouch for this game. This is an incredibly atmospheric horror game.
And I mean, as
almost doesn't even feel like horror. Like it's like
almost an adventure game with jump scares.
Yeah, kinda. Like it's just like you said, it's a really cool game if you're familiar with that like alien universe, you know?
And personally, I think that as far as like a marriage of two genres, I'm hard pressed to find a better genre marriage than sci-fi and horror.
Yeah, sci-fi horror, because you can really like push the boundary. Like you can create almost anything within explanation, kind of sometimes not even with explanation. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, totally, I agree.
Well, and it allows for some like really incredible moments. I mean, we brought up Dead Space earlier, and like at one point in Dead Space, you actually go out of the airlock and onto the outside of the ship, and you have like pretty much magnets on your shoes that allow you to stay attached to the ship's hull. So you're moving
Oh, okay.
around slower and like very like intense labored movements, like every time you walk. So like you can kind of hear the thunk really loud, and like the noises hit different every time that you're taking a step outside. And because it's anti-gravity, the monsters that you're encountering can now fly
Oh,
because it's space. So they're just floating towards you from a whole bunch of different angles in some areas and stuff like that.
you're
Like
like,
there's so much that you can do with the environments that you can't do in a more grounded setting, like just being on Earth
yeah,
with those limitations that you
I,
can do in space, and I love it.
I agree, and I think we're gonna see a lot more of that, and as the horror genre evolves, because even now, I feel like we're almost getting to this point where we have so many like different things that have been explored. Like the zombie genre has been sucked dry. There's only there's only so much we can do here on Earth.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna start seeing it continue to go farther and farther away from Earth, unless people start getting a little more creative with their Earth ideas.
Now, meanwhile, Capcom was working on Resident Evil 7 and taking, the Resident Evil series in a completely new direction. You had who was the developers for The Evil Within? Who was that? It was Bethesda. Tango Gameworks was the developer. The publisher was Bethesda Softworks. But
Yeah,
The Evil Within came out, and it was really the callback to Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4 style gameplay that I think a lot of people wanted. And it was a third-person shooter, like definitely survival horror type game. You have very limited resources. It's third-person over-the-shoulder shooting. There's a variety of different weapons that you can acquire as you go throughout the game. There's puzzles. There's a bunch of unique monsters, and if I'm correct, one of the original like directors for the early Resident Evil games, I believe, is who worked on this game, and
really.
who led it. Shinji Mikami, I believe. I'm gonna do a quick double check real
I'm
quick.
not too familiar with that.
It was a
made
big deal when it
movies
came out.
They made movies out of this game too, right?
The Evil Within. I'm not sure if those are
Yeah,
related. Same title, but I'm
it's
not
the
sure if they're
same.
related or not.
God, that movie was I that one scared the living daylights out of me.
Yeah, so Shinji Mikami, a little bit of background here. I guess we could have included this in the history section, but we'll do it now, just to clean that up a little bit real quick. Started his career in Capcom in 1990, and he went on to direct like many of the company's biggest titles. This is directly from the Wikipedia, just like for citing our sources here, but he did work on Resident Evil and Resident Evil 4. Which were,
Okay.
to some people, I mean, some of the best games in the series. I know we call back to
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2 a lot because the recent remake was so good, was as good as it was. I mean, absolutely incredible remake, by the way. But Resident Evil 1 was a fantastic game on its own merit. Like I've seen
I've never
playthrough
played
videos of
either of
it.
those.
I've seen playthrough videos of it, and it's actually a really good game. Like even today, I think it holds up really well. But I mean, this was the guy who was the mastermind behind those games, essentially. And Capcom was like, we're going to make action games, Resident Evil 6, here you go. And he was like, that's not me. This isn't my style. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I believe in. So our boy joins up with Bethesda, and goes on to make two of arguably the greatest horror games in the last 10 years. The Evil Within 1 and 2 are both absolutely fantastic. I've actually played both of these games and can heavily vouch for them. I think the story is really interesting. The set pieces are absolutely beautiful. All the things that they do with like the environment around you and like the visions that you have and like how you upgrade your character, all that stuff. I'm not going to spoil too much for anybody who wants to try these games because you can get them really cheap right now, but they are so good. I mean, absolutely worth playing.
Horror scares me, Vince.
Yeah. Yeah.
These sound so interesting, but then I know like when I get into it, I have to deal with the part of actually being afraid, and then that I'm like, you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is a good story worth being scared?
I think in this case, it probably is, honestly.
Okay.
I don't think that this one has jump scares quite on the level as something like Outlast or Dead Space or some of the more like horror-oriented games. If you've seen a playthrough of Resident Evil 4, I would definitely compare it to that. It's a lot more
Okay.
tense, a lot more like adventure-y, but like it's heavier on the gore side.
There's a lot of like pickups and stuff too, right? I think I've seen a little bit of gameplay. Like it kind of looks like you can tell it was worked on by Bethesda. Like
Yeah, it definitely has the
got
Bethesda
that feel
touch.
to it.
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah. But absolutely incredible series. I am desperately hoping they make another one because I cannot wait to see more of the universe and see how they push the story forward more, because the second one is actually a direct sequel, and it's, I mean, the whole way through, it's a thrill ride. It's so fun, and honestly, like a masterpiece of a horror game, in my opinion. At least, like for the ones that are a callback to that, generation of horror games where it was the third
Yeah.
person over the shoulder view as opposed to first person.
Right.
All
I
right.
might have to check that one out, dude. Jeez.
Do you want to play the next one, or play the next one? Talk about the next one.
Yeah.
Have you played it?
I have played PT.
Okay.
PT, guys, was like a showcase of what was supposed to happen that unfortunately didn't happen.
Moment of silence for Silent Hill.
Yeah, dude. That trailer or game or whatever you want to call it was probably the scariest gaming experience I've ever had in my life. And I played that like with friends, and it still like made me scream like a girl. Like I was terrified of that game.
And I would say it's probably one of the most unique gaming experiences I've ever had. It kind of touched on a lot of firsts for me.
Yeah, that like repetitious going through the same room, but like, sometimes it doesn't scare you, sometimes it really scares you,
Yeah.
but it always maintains that like tense, like white noise in the background, what the phone with the voicemails going off, like
So for people who didn't get to play PT, just give us a rundown of like basically what it was, like at its core, like the walking through. Where are you walking through?
you're walking through, you're coming like out of a, is it out of the basement or into it?
You're pretty much going through a hallway is where you start.
Yeah,
I mean, in any event, you're on a floor of a building.
you walk out of a door, and most of the time you're just in this hallway, and then there's like a big room with the front of the, it's like it looks like the front door to the house.
Yeah.
And then there's like, you got like an overhang, a second floor where you can see stuff sometimes, and that's something to look out for. And then you just continue down through that main room, and then it's the exit, and you're done. But when you go through that exit, sometimes something relevant happens, sometimes something doesn't. But when you come out, you're going through that same room again. And usually there's something different waiting for you, and you never know what it is.
Yep. And it's just
terrifying.
It's an infinite loop with changes that happen that are intended to give you a sense of being comfortable because you're in the same place, but at the same time, take advantage of you being that comfortable and use that comfort to scare you in ways you don't expect.
Yeah, there is like some weird psychological stuff that they worked on with that game.
I think it's incredible, and I don't think I've been more sad to see a game get canceled in my life.
I think that could have been the scariest game ever made. With Kojima, dude.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you have someone who, I mean, Hideo Kojima, obviously, like, a lot of mixed opinions about him and the games that he works on, and, like, how they can have kind of a convoluted story and things like that. But, I mean, the man is he's an absolute master at what he does.
Yeah, and I think the way he makes games could have worked especially well for horror. Like, that convoluted type writing and story. Like, it's just, I like that. I like the mystery in horror.
No, I'm gonna call out to Joe in the chat. He just said a good horror game is one that doesn't just kill you but keeps you afraid of dying.
Yeah, dude.
I think that's a great staple there.
And I agree.
I think that this game specifically is something that was kind of designed to do that on another level than had been seen before. Specifically because of the idea, like, and speaking only to the demo specifically here, because we haven't really seen more gameplay on this game. We had no idea what it was really going to be like everywhere else in the game. But I mean, going through this one area, I'm highlighting this like a little bit more again, because going through the same area, I mean, when you get up in the morning and you walk out your door, like to the rest of your house, and you walk around your house and you're familiar with your house because you've been there so many times before, and it's just second nature. You know where the cups are in your cupboard, you know where the food is in your fridge, you know where the bowl is to eat your cereal, that sort of thing. Like, these are all things that you're familiar with because of how many times you've seen them and how many times you've repeated them. Like, what he does psychologically in this game is on another level from anything I've ever seen in any horror game, and this was just a demo. It gets you comfortable with all of the set pieces that you see, all of the things that you see, the noises that you hear, things that you take for granted, honestly. Like, every time that you walk down this hallway and it hasn't changed and you're like, oh, that's still there, that's still the same, that's not a jump scare. And then this time you go to walk past it and it is a jump scare.
Yeah.
So like
You-
not only is there jump scares, there's jump scares where you can't expect them because you're going through the same area and you don't know what's different this time because sometimes there's nothing different.
Yeah, it just happens.
So the game
And
doesn't even have to psych you out with scares. You psych yourself out. It's incredible. It's brilliant.
yeah, I think that ties into the whole doesn't kill you, keeps you afraid of dying thing. Like
Yeah.
I never feared for I never worried about actually getting killed, but like the prospect of it happening was like what kept me on edge. I was like, oh god, like and that freaky old lady and you find out that you're Norman Reedus at the end, and like there's just so much we still don't know about that game or what could have been.
We can only hope that Konami has made the right decision and just is in the works to sell off the Silent Hill franchise to somebody who will actually do it justice instead of just
Yeah.
making terrible pachinko machines to release and make money off of people who compulsively gamble. Um, but there's no sign of that happening anytime soon. They canceled the game and then announced that they were releasing a new Silent Hill pachinko machine. Hope everybody's excited. Yeah, they legit
Yay.
announced that like a few months afterwards, and everybody was like, "You've got to be kidding me! You guys are a joke of a company." And then they released like Metal Gear Survive or whatever it was called, and it was terrible.
Oh,
Um,
that was bad, bad.
and it was a massive disaster, and everybody hated it. And that's Konami nowadays, and it makes me
Did you
sick.
play Death Stranding?
I did not play Death Stranding yet. No, it just recently came out on PC and still hasn't hit a sale point that I'm comfortable purchasing it at. I am a pretty big fan of like Norman Reedus, Guillermo del Toro, Mads Mikkelsen, um, like
Yeah,
and they're all three in that, and I'm very interested for
the
that
cast,
reason.
the
But
cast is very cool. That game, you're doing the right thing. I think you're waiting for that price point to go down. I think it's worth a little bit of a cheaper price, but it
yeah,
is strangely therapeutic. Like just kind of running around delivering packages. Little off topic. I just
I
shout out
mean,
to that. It's
I
kind
mean,
of fun.
since we're laser focused here on our topic, anyways. I mean, just to touch on like horror thrillers as a whole. Have you seen Hannibal, the newer show, not the movie? If you haven't seen it and you liked Mads Mikkelsen's character in Death Stranding, he is. I would say that Hannibal is in my top three shows of all time. It might be my number one TV show of all time. It's an incredible horror thriller, and Mads Mikkelsen plays the most incredible villain that I think I've ever seen in a TV show. He's so good, like perfect delivery of the character and of the role, and I could not be more happy with how that whole show turned out. It's so good.
He plays Hannibal, right?
Yep, he plays Hannibal
Okay, yeah,
Lecter.
that's what
Yeah,
I thought.
yes, Hannibal the Cannibal, our boy, Mads Mikkelsen.
Hannibal the Cannibal.
Yeah, I could genuinely listen to him talk all day. He's an absolutely brilliant actor. So back to laser focusing on our topic for today, horror games, and
Laser.
this is another one that's obviously pulls at my heartstrings a lot. The Last of Us, and I wouldn't necessarily count this as a horror game, but I can't really think of anywhere else to really fit this in other than horror because there are some like horror elements with the clickers and like the stealth elements inside of the game, the third person shooter mechanics, very narrative driven, like more than horror game, but does have horror elements. So we're lumping it in here.
Yeah, there's definitely times in that game where I've been like, oh man, let me go over and turn the light on real quick. I don't want to sit in the dark with this. Like, but for the most part, I'm so like I'm so into the story of that game that it kind of
It pushes you through everything
pushes
else.
that fear away. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason that I actually agreed to include this in here, and I didn't mention this when we were making our notes or anything like that because I wanted to tell you this for the first time now, but like,
Okay.
um, the main thing that unsettled me the most about the Last of Us games, and the main thing that I appreciate about these games, like on top of the narrative and on top of the clickers, is an interesting like zombie-esque creature, like and all of the like gameplay elements that it has that I think are incredible, is just how much it makes you afraid of people
Yeah.
and the lengths that they will
Yep.
go to. Like the way that they
Yeah.
display that humans are just as much of monsters as any of the monsters that you encounter in the game. And that's
I can.
actually what made me include it on this list.
I was somewhat more. I feel like they made the atmosphere of the levels with the infected a little like more scary,
Mhm.
but the levels with the humans, I think I found myself more afraid. I was like, these people are intelligent. They they know they can see me walking. They can shoot at me rather than run at me. Like that sounds way more scary. I think that's a good thing that a lot of different zombie games hit is like you once you figure out how to deal with these zombies, they're no longer your problem. Like these people that have nothing to lose,
Yeah.
that are smart, have way more of an effect on you than these zombies can.
Yeah, monsters in most horror games are typically very one dimensional. I mean, they have one purpose, they have one goal, and they do everything they can to accomplish that goal. Humans, and something that's, I think, a lot more explored in the second Last of Us game, again, avoiding spoilers and all that here because it is a pretty recent game and a very big game
Yeah.
across the gaming like universe. Honestly, I think this is a big deal for even people who don't play PlayStation games. The Last of Us is something a lot of people watch playthroughs of because of the like storytelling merit that Naughty Dog holds. So we're avoiding spoilers on this one, but I think that the lengths that they go to show you just how cruel people can be and just how desperate and like rash people can be when they're in the middle of their desperation, and the lengths that they will go to survive and to come out ahead and thrive and like develop an environment where they feel safe or they're okay or protect somebody that they care about or like whatever their twisted view of right is. You know,
Yeah.
the lengths that people will go to is what you should be afraid of. And I think that these games specifically capture that better than any other game on the market. And that's why I
Yeah.
was okay including them in the horror listing.
And I love that. I think one of the reasons enjoy these like infected zombie esque genres and specifically The Last of Us so much is that focus on humans just being naughty, man. I
Yeah.
like just a catastrophe happening and the way that humans react rather than the way that yeah, these monsters are here. They can be kind of scary, but like
Yeah. They're
far
an
as
afterthought.
yeah, yeah. Personally, to me, the human side of that is way, 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 way more scary. Like, if you threw me in that right now, I wouldn't be worried about the monsters. I'd be worried about the people next door. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, the combat scenes in the game realistically are brutal. And I mean, you don't
yeah,
think about, you know, shooting the head off of a clicker, but I mean, with how far graphics have come, you hit this level of realism where you can see the people like pulling at your arms as you're choking them to death inside of the game, you know?
yeah, they're
And
like
it zooms
scratching
in
at
and
you.
it gives you that cinematic angle and they're fighting and like your controller's vibrating like and you can tell that like they're losing their last breath in front of you and you can see it in their face because of how far graphics have come. And
Yeah,
and I think that the game does a really good job of not just capturing humans being naughty, but humans being human, because that's us. Because at the end of the day, I mean, people have this nature inside of them naturally. Society just tells us to put that away and to calm it down. I think most people don't live in an environment where they have to have that more feral side of them come to light. But everybody
right.
has that instinct inside of them to survive no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, and I think that they do a really good job of showing you the contrast between someone who is civilized and will also go to any length in the main character Ellie in the second game. Because there's
Hmm.
like, I don't consider this a spoiler. I'm okay talking about this, but like, there's a scene where she's just playing guitar.
Yeah,
Like, you find a guitar in some record shop that you're walking through, and she sits there and she plays and sings all of "Take on Me"
I loved that.
for
That was,
like 3 minutes or however long the song is. And I
I
mean, I was
enjoyed
almost
that
crying.
part.
I mean, it was beautiful, you
Yeah, I
know?
was there for that. Yeah, that made me want to learn that on acoustic.
Right? Exactly. I mean, it pulls at your heartstrings, and they do such a good job of showing you this is still a human. This is still your protagonist. This is still the main character that you love. And then immediately taking you into an environment where you're bashing someone's face in with a brick, and it's brutal.
That
And like,
game is
man,
incredible.
yeah,
I liked it, dude. Say what you want. I think Last of Us 2 is incredible.
strongly agree. I know a lot of people had issues with it and like with some of where the story went, but I think The Last of Us 1 and The Last of Us 2 were absolutely amazing. And I think that they're a must play for anybody who is a fan of anything psychological, like thriller, horror, anything like that. I think it's got enough of all of the elements as well as an incredible narrative story that if you haven't played it by now, you need to. I don't care if it's on
Yeah.
sale or not. You should pick it up and buy it. But
Yes.
moving on to the next one, I haven't played this one, but someone mentioned it to me. Do you know much about this game, Observer?
My the
Someone
extent of
mentioned it
my
in passing.
knowledge. Yeah, yeah. The extent of my knowledge of this game is like you're like a detective, I think, and you're going to crime scenes, but you can like live out like the killer's memories. So like you're like going crazy with the killers and like you're like seeing it all unfold. I'm pretty that's the gist of my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but
Yeah, I believe you're basically witnessing like the deaths of people or killing people through their own eyes, and you basically get to
like
experience all that yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think your character like experiences their emotions too. Like he can feel what the killers are feeling. Like so it like creates this weird, conflicted like storyline. I don't know. I've barely seen this game. I've just heard kind of the brief plot.
Yeah, I included it in here because, I mean, just in case anybody is still looking for horror game recommendations, I have it in here to throw out because I've heard really good things about it. I haven't heard the chance to play it myself, so we won't dwell on the topic too much,
Yeah.
as this isn't one that I've really gotten to experience, but I've heard excellent things about it. So
It sounds like a cool
comes highly
psychological.
recommended and was reviewed very well.
Right.
So for someone looking for something a little bit different, a little more psychological as opposed to just jump scares, I mean, with some unique perspectives, would recommend. You want to take the next one?
Yeah.
Have you played it?
So I have Dying Light. I have
Nice.
played Dying Light. So this one's a fun one. You're an operative, right? At the beginning, I believe. It's been a
Yeah.
while. You drop in, right?
Yeah,
Or
you
do you
drop
crash land?
into a
Okay.
city that's been infected.
Yeah, okay. They're infected with the zombies or whatever, and then you get infected, and then these people are like, "We got you, man. We got this like pseudo cure. Like you can it'll heal you as long as you keep taking it, right?"
Yeah, it'll hold off the infection basically.
That's right. And then this guy's like, "Cool, I'm gonna keep investigating this city full of zombies, find out what I can." And then so you're just playing as this dude, free running through a city, killing zombies in kind of like a I would say almost like a Dead Island type of way. Like you
Yeah.
have weapons you can pick up with durability, sometimes guns,
A lot of people
and
consider Dying Light to be pretty much the marriage of Dead Island with Mirror's Edge. If for those of you
yeah,
who aren't familiar, Mirror's Edge was like a really big like parkour free running game, and this kind of took elements from both of those and just mashed it into one like super baby of a zombie game.
I really enjoyed the parkour aspect more than anything in this game.
Yeah.
I it honestly like kind of like I said earlier when we were discussing the history, I feel like the essence of horror is that fear of being helpless or pathetic, you know? In this
Yeah.
game, it didn't scare me too much because I never felt pathetic or helpless. I always felt
Did
like
you go out at night a lot?
I did. And I actually like once I beat the game, I that was like all I did was try to like beat up those big baddies, whatever they were, the really gnarly ones. But those did scare me at first, I will admit.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
and that's what I was going to call back to here, and why actually I think this deserves to be included in our horror game like listing. Because again, I would consider this more of a traditional like action game than I would really a
yeah,
horror game. This is an action zombie game, but the nighttime thing that they did, like the active day night cycle, where when it hit nighttime, the zombies got
you
stronger and they got
you get your
faster.
ass inside. Yeah.
Yeah, and they could track you, and you had to be indoors because if you were outside, I mean, at least before you got all the really good gear and weapons and stuff like that, because it did have some RPG elements where you could get to a point where you were eventually strong enough and like had enough like parkour moves and all that stuff that you could do to like outmaneuver and outwit and pretty much beat up the zombies, if you will.
Yeah.
But before you got to that point in the game, that first time that you encountered those zombies out in the wild during nighttime and you were caught out after dark, I mean, it's a pretty immersive experience. It's pretty scary, honestly.
I'm pretty sure there's a mission at the towards the beginning where your guy's like doing something and then they're like, "Oh, you need to get back. It's dark outside."
And
And
obviously,
like
you're way too far away.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like you have to like just full send it all the way back to your base or whatever, and it's just like your first experience of that nighttime like, "Oh my god, I need to not be out at night," kind of feeling like
Yeah.
it's that yeah. And then the whole like blacklight thing I thought was interesting. Like all the safe areas had the black lights, right?
Oh yeah.
And they because they were afraid of the black light. There you could also carry one that kind of like
Warded
scared
off
them
the
away.
zombies. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. And one of the other things I think this game did really well before, like I think the most recent game to do it better was Days Gone, but like the zombie hordes in this game, I think they were very
Yeah.
well done. Like coming across a big, massive group of zombies, like if you're in the middle of fighting a couple and you're doing some parkour moves and you're just trying to get to where you're trying to go, and then you run into your objective and there's just like a horde of zombies. The one that sticks out to me specifically is there's like an electrical like area that you're trying to get to, and you have to
Yeah.
like jump across the top of the electrical boxes, and there's just like a swarm of zombies underneath you inside of the electrical area. Do you remember? It's like a pretty early mission.
I think I know what you're talking about. I
Yeah,
remember a lot of hordes in that game. They were like one of the first like true horde. Well, besides maybe uh Left 4 Dead, they had some pretty good hordes, I guess. But
yeah,
like I feel like the size significance of the hordes That was one of
Yeah.
like the first games where you were like, wow, that's a lot of zombies. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, early on in the game specifically, and again, like this was intended to be kind of an RPG game similar to Dead Island early on, where your character got stronger as you found better items and you found better loot and stuff like that. And there were like puzzles you could solve to get like a certain machete that was really good, like that sort of thing. So your character was supposed to get stronger, but early on, encountering these hordes, and you're swinging with whatever it was that you found. So you have your pipe and like a wooden plank and all these things, and your weapons are breaking because there's too many zombies, and
yeah,
you're just slowly getting overrun. Like, I think that feeling of helplessness is really like really impressive, the way that they captured it early on. And
yeah,
similar, like the way that they show your character kind of adapting to the environment as you get stronger and learn new things and like improve your ability to go out and scavenge and find supplies and all that stuff. Like, I think the Dying Light is an incredibly well made game. I don't think it's
yeah.
the
I love Dying
scariest
Light.
game, but I think it's definitely immersive for a really good zombie experience if that's what you're looking for.
I agree. Yeah, totally.
I think
And
that
there's a second one coming soon-ish. It's been announced.
air
Yeah,
quotes, air
yeah,
quotes soon. There's one coming at some point. It'll be here.
yeah,
Trust us, it won't get canceled. Believe us, right? Right?
yeah.
We hope. Yeah, we'll see. I want it to come out, but I don't. At this point, I don't know. They announced it so long ago. When did that get
Right.
announced? I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm kind of curious. Like,
My
I
guess
need to
is
know.
off the dome. I'd say about 2 years ago, 2.5.
Let's see when the announcement got. 2018. Okay. And
Two.
unfortunately, so that was only 2 years. Unfortunately, even earlier than that, Dead Island 2. Because Dead Island Riptide came out, but Dead Island
Yeah,
2
Riptide was whatever.
got announced even longer ago.
Dude,
Announcement.
2018's E3 had so many good announcements that like still aren't here today. Like, I'm pretty sure they did the Elder Scrolls announcement in 2018.
Did they?
Yeah, Elder
Oh
Scrolls
gosh.
6 was announced in 2018.
I
It
thought it
was
was
just a little
2019. Has it
like,
been that long?
it- yeah, it was like a little cinematic, and then all it said was Elder Scrolls
Oh, that's
6.
right. They should like panned around the
They,
environment, like
yeah,
a
they
very
they
stock
announced it
picture
though.
of fantasy environment.
Yeah,
But it's here.
but who knows? Yeah, that'll probably be like another 10 years at this rate.
They were like, "We're sorry for Fallout. Here's Elder Scrolls."
I think that was before Fallout.
Fallout 76 is what I'm
I think,
talking about.
yeah, no, I think that was before 76.
Was it?
I think like 76 was their like hot ticket discussion item that E3, and then they were like at the very end, Todd Howard was like, Skyrim.
Fallout 76
Or
released October 23rd, 2018.
I think it was right, but I think it
So
was
it
the
was
E3
right before that. It
Yeah,
was right before that. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember being
You were
hyped
absolutely
for that. I
right.
was like, wow, this looks crazy. Online Fallout. Sure enough, you know what happened with that, guys.
Gosh. Like, it's
Biggest
apparently
dumpster
better
fire
now.
ever.
Apparently it's better now from what I've gathered, and they put in a battle royale mode because that's what people want, right?
That had to have been like the crappiest at launch game ever made, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it
it was
was
a rough
bad.
one.
Anyways,
I'm like looking to see. I can't find the exact date that the Elder Scrolls 6 announcement came out, but Dead Island 2 got announced back in 2014, and we're still waiting.
yeah, that one's probably a goner, honestly.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah, and that was another one that people were big hyped for. The trailer was actually pretty cool. I thought
Dead
it was a good
Island's
one.
cool, man.
Yeah.
I like Dead Island.
So the last game on our list, I know nothing about. This was one that you brought up, so I'm gonna let
Yeah.
you take this one. But
So this is the final game we have listed here. I would consider it more of an honorable mention. It's going to be Friday the 13th of the game. So this game was very similar to Dead by Daylight in that you have, I think it was like 4 survivors, and except the main character this time as the bad guy who's chasing all the survivors is Jason himself. And the Jason could be different versions of Jason from like his different films, and those different versions would have different abilities that allowed you to grab people and hold them longer, or break through a certain type of wall, or have a different weapon. Like,
yeah,
and it was really cool. I think it was like better looking and far more cinematic than Dead by Daylight, but
hmm
it was just like incredibly buggy, and there was a lot of like, I
really
think there
didn't
was a
live
lot
up
of
to its potential.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that something happened with their rights, and Friday, like the people who made Friday the 13th, got upsetty with them and
Oh gosh.
pulled their rights to the game. So like, this game is it's dead in the water now. They can't even update it. They
Oh,
they
that
like don't
sucks.
have the rights anymore. So honorable mention. It was a cool game while it lasted. I had fun. The in-game communication was always pretty funny because you could like yell at the killer and taunt
Oh.
him and stuff, and he would be able to talk back to you. You'd be like,
Like
"Oh, get the hell
proximity
out of here!"
chat?
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
you would be able to like talk the most crap to Jason as he was like in your room. You'd be like, "Come find me, ha!" Like
Oh, that's funny.
it was cool. That was definitely the best part. Was like that social aspect of it. Like it wasn't scary by any means. It was a good experience with a pretty mainstream horror character.
And I think that, like, honestly, outside of potentially virtual reality as like a direction for video games to go in, I'm most excited to see how more of these genres are going to be incorporating the accessibility of everyone being online constantly into their
Yeah.
games. I'm excited to see what direction that's going to go in because I think we're going to start to see more horror games like that, things like Phasmophobia, where you're in there ghost hunting with your friends. Like, I'm excited to see how these genres develop as they start to include more social aspects. Because, like you said, I mean, we mentioned Dead by Daylight, but there's not a lot of cooperative horror experiences out there besides now
Oh,
Phasmophobia and then Dead by Daylight, which is even kind of a horror game.
I think there's like a little piece of that that I like kind of because I feel like that lack of cooperation or like rather the inability to cooperate it kind of like adds to that like thrill like you're with people but you still feel alone
Yeah,
almost.
definitely.
But I think if you're looking for more like enjoyable and not so much like tense experience, like that proximity chat stuff is absolutely hilarious. Like it makes it less tense. It's more of like a fun thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And games like Phasmophobia, you, like Grub's saying, you can talk smack to the ghost. It allows you to to more easily cooperate with your teammates because you need it in that game. There's a lot to manage. If you weren't able to talk to people, it would suck.
Yeah, definitely agree. So, I mean, that kind of wraps up our section talking about the game specifically, but like moving on to more your opinion, what I want to ask you is what is your favorite horror game? I know you haven't played many, but if you had to pick one, like seen, watched other people play, just seen clips of, played yourself, whatever it is, what is your favorite horror game if you had to pick one?
I really like if we're talking games where like the game itself I thought was incredible, since it's on our list, I absolutely love The Last of Us. That is always going to be one of my favorite games. But as far as a game that has like scared my socks off, um, probably either PT, Outlast, and not a game we had on the list, but this one game on Steam called Welcome to the Game, where
I
you
haven't
play
heard
as
of
like
it.
it's like you're this guy and you're the whole game takes place in like your apartment complex and all you are you're like a you're just going on the deep web to like find this lady that was kidnapped. So you have to go through these like really like gross gnarly websites to like find these hidden codes and like in the code of the website or like
Oh,
hidden
that's
in
crazy.
images and it's freaky, man. But then
Huh.
like you also since you're going on these like really bad websites, you have to bounce your internet to like different places and stuff and like once you get far enough, like if you don't bounce your internet enough, you'll get off your computer and it's first person, you turn around and your door just like busts open with the flashbang and the SWAT gets you. And then
Oh, that's crazy.
sometimes sometimes you'll get up and you'll hear like a knock at your door.
Yeah.
And if you answer it, there's like a hitman there. He's like some Russian dude who just like caps you. And then like, so when you hear that knock, you know you got to go into the bathroom and hide in the shower real quick. And like, you can only hide in the shower once because once you hide in the shower once, he knows you hide in the shower. So you got to find different hiding spots. Like,
That
it,
sounds
it,
insane.
that game is terrifying. I played that on stream when I streamed in high school, and like I couldn't do it. It was terrible. It was
That's
very scary. I would try it.
that's a great call out, man. That's excellent. Right on.
Yeah, it's a cool. Yeah, psychological for sure. I like that stuff. The psychological is what I enjoy out of horror. But how about you, man? What's your favorite horror game?
Um, I mean, it's a little bit of a toss up, but like realistically, like in my heart, I know it's not even close. Like, there's a couple of games I would love to call out here, but it's Dead Space. It's
Yeah.
not even comparable to anything else that I've ever played. They did so many things right with the first two games. Again, I just forget that the third game exists. But Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 is genuinely the most fun and like the most afraid I've ever been of horror games. Like the way that they do the jump scares and the environment, the atmosphere, the music, the weapons that you get, the fact that you can upgrade your weapons, like the actual gameplay elements were equally as good as the horror elements. And like they were both honestly pumping at the top of their game. Like firing on all cylinders. My perfect horror game is Dead Space 1 and 2. I thought they
I
were
I
so well done.
I really want to try it after you brought up that little laser mining gun. Like that alone sounds fun enough to try. And
And there's
the high
different
praise.
ones.
Oh,
So again,
and the high
like,
praise they're
yeah.
giving right now just makes me want to play it more. I wonder, is it on sale right now? I'm gonna check.
If not, it's on EA Access. You can subscribe for $5 and play through all the Dead Space games.
Oh well, I mean it's like $5 anyways, so
Perfect. Yeah.
not
Either
sound
way,
too bad at all.
either way, definitely worth playing. Easily my favorite horror game. It is not even close. Dead Space blows everything else out of the water that I played. Honorable mention goes to Evil Within because I thought those were absolutely great experiences. But yeah, Dead Space is on EA Access. Yes. Or
Nice.
whatever EA Play, whatever they call it now, their $5 subscription service. It's included on there because it's an EA game. So,
Are so out of some of these games we talked about, is there any game you'd like to see a sequel for that doesn't already have one, or maybe a sequel to a trilogy, perhaps?
as much as I would love to say Dead Space again, I'm absolutely terrified of this series being still in control of EA.
Yeah,
Like, I am
yeah.
more
EA
afraid of the
is.
gaming company than I've ever been of any video game, and their ability to ruin franchises that I love dearly. I mean, I'm honestly scared to see where Dragon Age 4 goes, or whatever it is that it ends up being called, the fourth entry in the Dragon Age series. I hate what they did with Mass Effect. I feel like they've absolutely milked all of their sports games, even though they're decent games for the sports crowd. It's basically a card game more than it is a sports game at this point.
Oh yeah.
Realistically, you look at what they did to Dead Space 3, which again you haven't experienced yet, but it didn't hold a candle to the first two games. As much as I want a sequel to that one, I can't say that I really want a sequel to that one because it's going to be done by EA, and I don't think it'll be good. I just
We
don't
could
think they have it anymore.
absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely not. We could absolutely make a whole podcast on
What
why EA
EA's,
sucks. Yeah,
what they've
like
done wrong,
yeah, that is.
how
We
they
could
did us
actually do
dirty.
that. No joke. Yeah, they suck, man.
So aside from that one, and I mean this is one that I kind of mentioned earlier, The Evil Within. I would absolutely love to see a third game in that series. I thought that those were excellent third-person shooter horror games. I think the atmosphere is second to none other than Dead Space. I think the storytelling, the way that they do the upgrades inside of the game, so much of it is just so creative and so well thought out and well realized in the game. I think that it really captured exactly the essence that they were trying to go for, exactly the horror and like the tension that they wanted. And I would love
Yeah,
to see a third one. I would absolutely buy it.
they just keep building upon it too.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
As
no
much
steps
as
backwards.
as much as I don't buy games on launch day, both of the Evil Withins I bought at full price on launch day, and they're
Damn.
not
Okay.
games that are intended to last you like 40 hours or whatever. I knew what I was getting into. I just genuinely think it's worth it, and I support companies that I believe in like that.
Anyone listening right now, Vince buying a game on launch day is huge. That should mean something. Okay. That is that is the biggest compliment Vince could give a game.
Yeah,
Just want
I
to throw that out there for any listeners.
I don't think I've bought another game on launch day this whole year. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think, not even one.
Well,
So
it gets worse and worse, man. It's like nowadays you don't even know what you're getting. But
yeah.
like anyway,
What
I
about you?
if I had to pick one, this is kind of a lame pick, I'd say, but I really want to see the next chapter in Ellie's journey in The Last of Us. I don't want to
Absolutely,
talk about it because I know I don't think you finished it yet,
I
and
haven't yet.
I don't know no spoilers here, but the way it ends off, I want to see some more. I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
That would be a cool one for me.
I
Aside
mean,
from that, not so much of a sequel. I think it would be really cool if like this Friday the 13th game got rebooted in some way, maybe with like a
properly.
different killer.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with that game when it was like fresh. That proximity stuff is is really fun. I thrive on that.
Take the same game and just reskin it.
Yeah, or like yeah, it doesn't even have to be Friday the 13th or any mainstream. Like it could be like some type of Dead by Daylight thing. It's original killers, but same kind of concept, running around. I can talk to the killer and taunt him. That's all I want to do, man.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned The Last of Us as like something that you would want a sequel for, and I don't think that's a bad pick at all. I mean, I haven't
Yeah.
finished the second game yet, and I still need to. I'm just so short on like my gaming free time that like I get kind of caught up on playing whatever multiplayer game I'm playing right now and like no lifing that.
Yeah.
But I remember finishing the first game and just immediately wanting more.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
like the way that they leave cliffhangers, the way that Naughty Dog does their storytelling, I think that they might be better than anyone else in the industry at leaving you wanting more of whatever it is that they've got going.
Yeah, and you can definitely expect that at the end of this one, bro. It was a brutal one. I'm almost like expecting it just because of the amount of controversy it got. Like they're gonna try to clean up their mess at some point, I think, or like
Yeah,
their mess, even though it was, I think everyone blew it out of proportion. But you
absolutely.
know,
And I mean, even if they don't continue the story, people love the universe and they love the storytelling. They will come back for it.
I could see how it could be like a really beautiful ending. Like I'm excited for you to finish this game so we can actually like talk about it. But
I'll
I'll
say
probably leave it there so I
we
don't
might end
slip
up doing
something
an
out.
entire podcast episode dedicated to only The Last of Us at
Yeah,
some point. That might
we'd probably get
happen.
a lot of attention because of how much hate that game has.
Yeah. Something that I just saw that we missed in our notes, we actually skipped one of our games we were supposed to talk about, and that's Until Dawn. And like I wasn't gonna go back and mention it, but
I
the
didn't
more I
even
thought about it,
notice that,
we have to
dude.
mention this game. It's so good.
Until the, I okay, that's my favorite like genre is the
Pick your own
choose
adventure.
your. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
man! Like when it's done well, oh, beautiful, bro. And this
Yeah.
game, again, never played it, but the beautiful thing about choose your own adventure games
You
is
haven't
that
played Until Dawn?
I haven't, but I've seen like I've watched so much Until Dawn. Like I've watched all of the playthroughs. I've seen it all, dude. I loved that game.
Okay. As long as you've seen the playthroughs and everything like that, so you know what
Oh
it's
yeah,
about. I was like, if you like that style of game,
absolutely.
like, put on your big boy pants and suffer through it, you need to play this game. It's so incredible. Like, one of the most incredible things, this is actually a game, I went to the PlayStation Experience, the first one that they had, and they had a demo of this on the floor. And the PlayStation Experience, for those of you who don't know, it's like basically a PlayStation only E3. The very first one they did was in Vegas, and it was huge, and it was absolutely incredible. I was working at GameStop at the time, so I got like 4 free tickets, and like me and all my buddies went, and it was so cool. And
That's awesome.
I can't remember if it was this year that was the first year. We also went the second year afterwards. But one of the years that we were there, Until Dawn was there, and we got to try it. And you go into this booth, and it's like you're separated from the other people, so you can't see what's going on their screen, and you're inside, and it's dark and everything like that. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this game, at the start of the game, it asks you what you're afraid of, and it tailors your experience inside of the game based on your answers of what you're afraid of. So the main villain who's following you and stuff like that, if you're like, I'm afraid of clowns, he'll have a clown mask
Like,
on.
yeah, it's terrible.
They'll ask you, are you more afraid of needles or are you more afraid of suffocating? And if you're more afraid of suffocating, he has this like gas mask thing that he'll like chase after you with that he uses to suffocate you. If you're afraid of needles, he carries a needle when he chases you that he uses to basically kill you with the needle. Like it's like a lethal injection that he carries to chase you with.
Yeah.
You can choose, are you more afraid of insects or are you more afraid of gore? And if you're more afraid of gore, then you see somebody get cut in half. If you're more afraid of insects, you see somebody get dropped into a pit of insects. Like it's the layers to this game, like the way that they do horror based on what you pick, and the way that your like choices as you're going through the story impact the rest of the story. I mean, the way that they capture the butterfly effect in this horror game specifically is unlike anything I've ever played. Enough so that I had to throw my structure for the podcast episode completely out the window and go back and mention it because it's so good.
Yeah, this totally worth going back for. Absolutely. I think we're seeing a nice renaissance of these choose your own adventure games.
Definitely.
For a long time, it was like this like illusion of choice where maybe your narrative experience was a little different. Like people say different things and whatnot, but like overall, your story always has the same like ending.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not really choosing my own adventure. That's just me kind of like deciding what I'm gonna do to get to the same ultimate outcome. Like,
yeah, the only game I can really think of that had like significant choices like that was like Mass Effect 1 and 2.
Yeah, Mass
there
Effect
were like significant things that happened in that, and then outside of that, the only thing I can think of is like Quantic Dream.
Yeah,
Heavy
Quantic
Rain,
Dream
Beyond Two Souls,
has
Detroit.
been doing insane amounts of work with that. Like, I'm so excited for whatever next game they decide to put out. Like after Detroit Become Human, like that game probably sits somewhere within my top 5 favorite games. Like that was such a wonderful experience. Like I wish that's one of those games where I wish I could just wipe my brain and play it again for the first time all over again. Like
yeah,
it was so good. But
and
yeah, that's
Until Dawn definitely hits that same note for me. It's a game that I wish I could play again for the first time. All the twists and turns in the story, all of the jump scares, all of the things that you don't expect or don't see coming, the way that you see that your choices impact you in the future and things like that. I mean, it's magical, honestly. It really is.
I love watching that game. And that's another those games are so easy to like watch. I love watching that because you never get the same experience from somebody twice, like very rarely, I guess, but like you know what I mean? Like everyone has different reactions to things. You get to kind of see like it's almost more fun to watch than to play. Like for me, like I just like observing that kind of stuff. I don't know, it's cool.
And seeing other people react to things that like are coming and seeing them
Yeah,
get different
yeah,
answers than you got on your playthrough. I would say that Until Dawn probably best captures the spirit of the horror genre across books, across movies, across TV shows, like all of it, in the way that you can experience it with other people. Like just like going back to like times when I've gone and seen horror movies with groups of friends or things like that, I think that it captures that spirit better than any other game
yeah.
because it's
And it's
incredibly accessible. It's not hard. It's just fun.
and you
And
can make every playthrough a little different.
exactly. It's a
You
unique
have
experience for everyone.
incredible amounts of replayability.
Yeah. So I mean, we're jumping back down to our opinion piece now, but I saw it on the list and I was like, there is no way I can end the show without mentioning this
Dude, I
game in
can't
some
believe we
way.
skipped over that. I don't know how that happened. That was a big one for me.
Just Galaxy Brain plays as usual,
Yeah,
business.
yeah, you know. Hey,
We
we got
continue
it
on
though.
as
We're
usual.
good.
Yep. So if you had to pick what horror game has not lived up to its potential in your opinion? Not horror game necessarily, but series, anything like that. Anything that you've played that started out good and got worse, anything that you expected to be good, got, and was an absolute flop. I mean, what has been undeserving of whatever notoriety it's gotten at this point? What needs to be better? If you had to pick one game or
As
one
far as
series.
undeserving goes, I think The Last of Us was undeserving of all the crap it's gotten.
But I mean,
But
it's definitely lived up to its potential in our opinion.
oh
I think both
yeah,
of us share that
yeah,
opinion on that one.
totally. In my opinion, it lived up to it. I just gotta keep razzing all The Last of Us haters.
Fair
But
enough. Rightfully so.
um, I'm gonna go back to Friday the 13th again, dude. I think that game had some potential that it definitely did not live up to because of development issues.
I think even worse because you saw the heights that it could have reached.
I
Honestly,
think it could have been so fun.
yeah,
Like so fun even that I think that they should make another attempt at it with just like different character that they
yeah.
don't get copyrighted for and lose the rights to their game and now they can't update it and it's just a dumpster fire for the rest of time.
The real monsters are the teams of lawyers that come in afterwards and clean you out. That's
Really?
unfortunate for Friday the 13th. I strongly agree on that. That's one that I would
Yeah.
like to see more. I'm kind of sad that I missed out on getting to experience that. Honestly,
Yeah. It, it's not the same anymore. Now it's just kind of AIDS. Like I'm pretty
bummer.
sure it's like full of cheaters and stuff.
Hate to see it, dude. That sucks.
Yeah.
It's like Fall Guys.
Yeah, they don't monitor their game at all. Fall Guys has no excuse. Fix your game. You know how much money those guys are making right now?
I think it's been better recently, from what I gather. There hasn't been as many
I
cheaters in games,
I hope so.
but still. So, I mean, for me, looking at this, if I had to pick one series that hasn't lived up to its potential, looking at the list of games we have here, looking at all the games that we've talked about, I have to say Dead Space still. I have to.
Yeah, dude.
Because I've already seen two games that were so like perfectly realized in my opinion for what the horror genre should be and what a good horror experience is. And I look at a game like Dead Space that I love so passionately, and then with the third game coming out and being as bad as it was, outside of the DLC, of course, which is still pretty good, but I still hesitate to say whether or not it's worth playing through the disaster of a main game just to play the DLC. I I need another Dead Space game, but I need the original Dead Space games. I don't need Dead Space 3.
Yeah.
I don't need another action game. I don't need microtransactions. I don't need whatever, stuff EA tries to force down my throat to try to make an extra buck off the game. I don't need 16 different editions of the game at launch. Like, I just need core horror, atmospheric, in space with my mining laser going through and blasting baddies and, almost peeing myself from the jump scares because they're, like, so well done. Like,
Yeah.
I hesitate to think of a franchise that I've been more disappointed on, period. I cannot think of any franchise that I've been more bummed out by than Dead Space because of how much love I have for those first two games that has just not been realized since then.
I can't relate because I've never played them, but I trust your opinion. And
Yeah.
I bring words of hope. Okay, I feel like when the next gen comes, we see these resurgences of like of franchises that people love. And I think there could be a nice little potential for Dead Space to make a comeback on next gen, perhaps. I feel like developers like releasing like one game from their franchise on the next gen, like at least one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
And
think there's a possibility.
one thing that actually gives me a little bit of hope here is that there was a Dead Space 4 actually in the works and it got canceled. And I mean,
Oh,
that might sound like the opposite of what I want, but that's actually exactly what I want. Like,
no, yeah,
and I hate to say
that's
that, but
something.
like, you look at a series like this where the third game came out and like was just like not at all what people wanted it to be, and then you see them going back for another attempt. And if for any reason they looked at this and they were like, "This is not what we think people are gonna like," and they canned it, that gives me hope that they have the intent of doing something better with it in the future. And they realized that their goal couldn't be realized with the team that they had and the way that they were going, and that they're going back to the drawing board to hopefully come up with something better and push it forward onto the new generation of consoles.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. I think that is the hope. That is what we can hold on to here. And I might try Dead Space now, dude. You kind of got me thinking about it.
It's worth a playthrough. It honestly is. At least play through the first couple of levels to see if you can stomach the horror stuff, and if you can, keep going because
I'm bu-
it is so worth it.
yeah, dude. I'm bummed we didn't have this conversation before for the Halloween because now spooky season's over. I could have
There's
been a game, man.
there's always an appetite for horror games. People love seeing people get scared.
It's true. It's
That's
very
just, I
true.
mean, that's the internet. The internet has been
Yeah,
thriving on people, getting jump scared and stuff like that all the time. That's why people have crazy loud follower alerts and stuff like that while they're streaming horror games because
I
people
can't
like
do
it.
that.
I can't do it either. I won't do it. I have my normal follower alert. If you guys are here for the horror stream later tonight, it will be completely the same as usual. I will just be playing a horror game. I will be scared enough, I promise you.
I
Um,
feel the same way. That's what I would do. So respect.
yeah, as much as I love horror games, I'm a big baby. I am. I do not handle it well. I am still terrified of scary movies. The first Conjuring movie I went to see, it was because like some like girl that I worked with at work who I thought was cute was like, "You want to go with us?" And I was like, "Done." I didn't even think
Yeah,
twice about it. I just said yes. That's all it was. Yeah.
that's the move, though.
Yeah, and I went and I was sitting next to this guy, and this guy was probably the most animated person I've ever sat next to in a movie. Every single time that anything would happen, this dude was jumping out of his seat like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Like screaming, like in the middle of the theater. Like legitimately was more scared of the dude next to me than the movie because like
Just dramatic.
it was always right when the jump scares happened at like the most tense moments, this dude would just like completely flip his lid in the middle of the movie theater.
It's kind of cringe, bro.
Yeah. It was authentic though. Like I mean, I can't sell it the way that he did because
Oh, it was
I'm not that
authentic?
animated of a person, but I mean like it was legit. Like the dude was actually
Oh,
getting
okay.
scared. He wasn't doing it over the top or anything like that. Like it was enough that like I was also more scared because like he'd be sitting completely still and then something really scary would happen and he'd lose his mind. And like that freaked me out too because I'm already like on the edge of my seat because I don't do horror stuff.
Yeah, I
But
can't.
yeah.
Yeah, neither. Same here, man.
Yeah. So
That's why I
hopefully
don't.
hopefully
Can't.
that's why what? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was gonna make a crack and say I can't deal with loud people in the theater, but
Oh dude, no, I feel you.
you go ahead, man.
No, I feel you. You're good. I was gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I feel like we're nearing the end of our show. We've talked about everything we want to talk about horror wise. Was there anything else you wanted to add in?
I'm good, man. I just gotta go to the restroom really bad right now.
I am proud of you for holding it this long. You've done incredible. Really
Thank
good
you.
job for sure.
Yeah,
So everyone who tuned in, everyone who watched, as always, thank you guys so much. Everyone who downloads, everyone who listens, we appreciate you guys. We hope you enjoy the shows as much as we enjoy making them. Video games is something we both love and we're passionate about, and we love talking about video games in pretty much every capacity. If you have any interest in being on the show, feel free to fill out an application. We have a link in the chat. If you are a listener and you want to be on the show, you're a content creator, you have a working webcam and a decent mic, feel free to send us an email over to gamingtonic1@gmail.com. For anyone who has any questions, comments, feedback, anything like that about the show, you can send it to the same link. That's gamingtonic1@gmail.com. Also, for anybody who's interested, you are more than welcome to follow us on Twitter. You can find me at Vince0094 on Twitter, listed as just Vince on Twitter, but somebody still has that handle from like 12 years ago. Their account has been completely inactive and they have not ever tweeted. I'm working on it. We'll
contact
see.
Twitter support. You might be able to snag that name.
They said no.
Really? What
I
about
tried. I'm not big enough yet. I have to get more followers on Twitch first,
Yeah,
apparently, before
once
they'll
you're
let me do it.
verified, you'll be good to go.
Yeah. Also,
All
for
about the
anybody,
clout.
yeah, for anybody who's curious, you can find me on Just Vince on Twitch. That's where I'm usually live at 10 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, and then I usually do stuff on the weekends. What about you, Joker? If people want to find you and want more of your content, where you at?
find me at twitch.tv/theordinaryjoker, spelled just like the text under my camera. My Twitter is also going to be right there at ordinary_joker with 2 R's. And I go live every weekday, Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific time.
Most excellent. Thank you so much. This was a great show today. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to be tuning in either to Joker's Watch Party later if you want to watch some Pet Cemetery and you have Amazon Prime, you can check him out on his channel. And if you want to watch my channel later tonight, probably around 7 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to be playing through Outlast 2 with me and my wife, Erica, and it is going to be a great time. We appreciate you guys. We love you.
Get it both up on the screen. We're there. You're here right now. I know for a fact you're not going anywhere. We're going to be live in like an hour or two. Throw us both up on the screen, okay?
We know your browser has multiple tabs. We know you can do it.
That's right.
So
that's right.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Much love. Take it easy, and have a great day.